Welcome to the RaceGuru Thunder Hour, brought to you, as always, by the Elite Plus Network, part of the FantasyGuru.com family. Please head over to FantasyGuru.com, click the subscribe button, check out, see if there's a package there for you. If you like all of our content here, feel free to sign up for the MVP package. You'll get all of our racing content along with all the other sports that's not football and baseball. And hey, football season's here, Sean.
Yeah.
So any of you into football, which is like everybody, please check out our early bird pricing for our NFL packages and the draft guide. If you have any questions on what packages include what, please feel free to reach out to support at FantasyGuru.com, and they will be more than happy to help you out. Tell them what you're looking for. They'll set you straight. If you like this podcast and you're watching on YouTube or something like that, please hit like and subscribe. We greatly appreciate it. It means a lot. I know there's about 10 of you that watch, so thank you to the 10 folks out there. We really appreciate you.
Seriously, we do.
We do. We really do.
Yeah.
We can't thank you enough. We really do. So, and we are back this week for Memorial Day weekend. And Sean, I'm trying to keep it chill because I don't know if you know this. You probably do because I think we talked about it. This is my favorite race weekend of the year, man. I love this weekend.
Yeah.
I'm not even a big F1 guy, but I might even watch a little bit of Monaco because it's Monaco. Monaco's like cool. I mean, driving under the parking garage or whatever that is, and that tiny little road along the waterway. And then we go into the Indy 500. And I don't know, Sean, if you're like me, but I'm not above packing a cooler and sitting in my Lazy Boy. Like I have packed a cooler and sat in my Lazy Boy before just to watch Indy and Coke. It is getting weird. Ever since moving up here, I haven't been at the track as much as I used to, but I spent a lot of hours at Indianapolis and Charlotte over the years, and I consider them both home. So I don't know, man. I'm already pumped. Indy's going to be interesting. We'll talk about that a little bit. This car, we hate it, but it works great at the 1.5 miles. So maybe Charlotte, notoriously kind of a blah race, right? 4 stages this week, equal mounted between, each caution flag, if you will, but a lot going on. And there's not a lot to cover last week. I will say this, Sean, for me hating this car at short tracks, I thought they put on a decent show at North Wilkesboro. And it's contrary to NASCAR's numbers, right? We didn't have a pile of lead changes. The same two drivers we both pushed for the record, pretty much were the contenders all race long. We had some other guys that were kind of nipping at the bud and right there. But, Sean, for a short track race with this car, I don't need the passing numbers to tell me it was a good show. I enjoyed it. And Joey can be mad about the promotional caution. I thought it would be gimmicky, Sean. You and I talked about it, but I didn't mind when they threw it. Like it actually – when we used to get those weird cautions, this is about when it would happen. I don't like it when it's 10 laps to go. With 30, 40 laps to go or 20 at a bigger track, I can palate that. I think it was a perfectly timed caution by Michael Waltrip, even though he lost the flag on the track. And I know Joey was upset, and I have to give a hat tip to Joey. I still need to tweet back to him. I tweeted at him. I was that bag saying, you got no reason to cry. You totally pinched Bell. What he did was nothing you wouldn't have done or done to anybody else. Quit your whining. And truth be told, Sean, you told me about it. He came out right and said, I went back and looked at it, and I should probably calm down.
Yeah. Also, I'm Sean, by the way. I'm the man
I
behind
totally
the curtain. So
this is Sean. Please follow Sean on Twitter at SeanE247. I got so excited about this weekend, Sean. I am so sorry. I made a note to make sure we plugged what we needed to plug, and I totally forgot to introduce you. I am Rich. I'm freaking Rich Maletto, so the title works today. Don't follow me on X. I'm lost today, bro. I can't help it. I'm sorry.
Well, we're going to be rolling around because it's a humongous week for motorsports. There's a lot to get lost into, so there is that.
I'm excited.
But as far as the All-Star race is concerned, I got to say, for a short track, it actually was not that bad. Not that bad. Surprisingly.
Good storylines. Strategy came into play. 2 tires we figured would be a call. We knew that was going to happen. One of the last pit stops to see everybody come down pit road except for at least the front leaders, except for about 2 cars. That
It
I
was about
think caught
5,
every.
I believe, actually. And
Well,
then
there was only
at
2
the
in
end,
that
it
first.
was.
Yeah, I would say, but there was only 2 in that first group of 10 or 12 cars that actually stayed out. Which for me, at that track, if you weren't in the first 3 to 4 rows, I don't think I was really looking at you to be a contender until there was a flag of some sort to get you bunched back up again. So I was shocked when, the Penske stayed out, right? And everybody else came down. That was interesting. We knew 2 tires would play out. Joey did have as good of a car as Bell, but again, this is the complaint with the car. Whoever got that clean air out front, even at a short track where years ago we weren't worried about aerodynamics, we might have the whole front clip off a car and see cars do fine. With this horsepower, you're not going to see it. It's not going to happen. So
No,
it was a good battle, though. I mean,
it was.
Joey and Bell, it was a good battle. I thought it was clean racing. Did he pinch? Yeah, but it's not like he bounced Joey up into the wall.
Nah, and in fact, actually, before he did that, Joey kind of ran him up the track first anyway. So I thought it was fair game, and they were keeping it clean and weren't wrecking out. So it was entertaining racing. Although it looked like at one point they were going to end up losing control and go up to the wall, and then Ross was going to steal it right there.
It was looking – that's what I mean. It really was, because we knew some of the cautions. We knew, the promotional thing was going to come into play. But there was action on the track. There was good passing. It wasn't just bump and run. The repave on the track with the progressive banking, it did really well. And they talked about in the booth the track getting wear. Whenever the pavement wears out, and look, they learned at Darlington. They did this at Darlington. They wanted to make the new pavement when they repaved it about 5-6 years ago to be a tire shredder like old Darlington was. They found a way to do that. And I think they carried that over a little bit because they said they wanted North Wilkesboro to wear in quick. And it looks like it has. And like the folks in the booth said, give it another year or 2, and it's just going to get that much better. I'm still not wanting to put a points race here because I don't want to kill the track. I fear too many of these points races at the short tracks. Like, I think Bristol's probably going to lose a short track race is my guess. Probably the spring event, right? We won't get rid of the night race.
Yeah,
but I
that
think
was
that's
gonna be
very
my prediction too, right there.
Yeah,
that they're going to try to push North Wilkesboro to replace Bristol.
Yep. I don't know that I love that. If not, what the other track they'll probably push to replace is Martinsville.
Yeah, true. I was going to say Richmond, but then I remember they did reduce Richmond down.
They already did that one. We can't do anymore. There's nothing left at Richmond, right? So, and here's the sad thing. I got into a discussion with someone on X the other day. They want the schedule expanded. And I said, that's a horrible idea. We already have market saturation problems. And he's like, well, I don't care about football. I just like racing. And I'm like, that's cool, but you're probably 10% of the fan base. And no matter what business you have, I maintain this stance. I did study econ, so it's not like I'm just making this up. Market saturation is a thing. If you don't leave your customers wanting a little bit, it's hard to get them to come back. So if you give enough fill where they're like, I'm good, I actually need a break from racing for a few weeks, that's bad. I know it doesn't seem like it, but that's really bad, because what happens is over time, that just gets expanded more and more. And Sean, you and I have talked off air a little bit about this, but the NFL's doing this. And we're seeing this in the fantasy industry, where I talked to a lot of people this last year that were burnt by the end of the football season. It's a long grind from a fantasy perspective, and I think that's why you're going to see daily and sports betting kind of climb. And NASCAR's already there. We don't really do a lot of seasonal stuff for NASCAR. I would argue it's because it's too long. It really, you've got to break up the season-long thing if you're going to do it. And it's way more fun when you're looking at a DFS standpoint, because we've only got 43 drivers. So it's not like we have a pool of hundreds of drivers to choose from. I worry about the market saturation, and I'd like them to see it cut races, but the idea of cutting a Bristol race kind of makes me sad. Martinsville, but something's got to go if we're going to add, something like Rockingham or North Wilkesboro back.
Yeah, that's how it's going to be, unless they're going to really change around the schedule and add more races. My whole thing about adding more races is I'm only for it if they add midweek races. And that's what
I told the guy. I said, competing with football, that is bar none, heads down, the most popular sport, is a horrible business model. You're competing head to head, and you want casual fans. Those casual fans are diehard football fans. And I don't think people realize that. They just say casual fan's a casual fan. I don't think NASCAR casual fans is the same as NFL casual fans, okay? There's probably some overlap there, but there's some casual NASCAR fans that are diehard football fans. And as much as we want everyone to love racing more than anything else, I don't think it's plausible. So running the NASCAR season to literally past the midway point of the NFL season, Sean, no matter what they do with the playoffs and try to make it exciting, I don't think it's going to change anything. All it's done is made the championship confusing, which turns off casual fans because they don't understand what's going on, and alienate the hardcore fans. The guy brought up, hey, we used to run 100 races. I said, yeah, but they were midweek. And he brought up Flow. And I said, what kind of ratings does Flow had compared to NASCAR, NBC, or Fox? Well, of course it's not the same. You really think Flow's going to get the same ratings on a Wednesday that Fox gets on a Saturday or Sunday? I don't think that's plausible. But I'm with you, Sean. If we're going to add race, I'll even go this far, Sean. I'm good if we add, say, 5 or 6 races, but I want to cut 4 weeks off the schedule.
I'm fine with that too. Just make them midweek races, and I'm happy about it.
It's been working in the Dirt Series, Sean. Thursday Night Thunder was a thing for a long time. We're seeing it with Flow. There's Wednesday night events. I honestly don't know how this is working because as a fan, Sean, how often do you go to the racetrack during the week?
I mean, let me just also put it to you this way as well. That NASCAR has proven that the midweek race concept could work before. Just look back towards the COVID year. I mean, come on.
Well, let's be fair. If there's not much action on Tuesday and Wednesday, which college basketball, NBA kind of has some of that, hockey has some of that, but for the most part, there's not a lot going on midweek. And at that time, if I remember correctly, it was COVID, so a lot of things were dead, right? I'm just saying from a fan attendance standpoint, when I think about going to a race, it's an all-day affair. Even the Xfinity and Truck Series that are shorter events, I can get to the truck race after work, but I'm not leaving the track till 10 o'clock at night, right? So that's plausible, but that's on a Friday night. How many butts can we really put in the seat on a Wednesday night race that starts at, say, 7 o'clock?
Yeah, that's the only thing. It isn't going to get as much people into the stands as, say, a Friday or a weekend race. But I do think if we can maybe somehow market it towards TV and make that a nice, approachable product, I think we can have something right there anyway.
I think the ratings will be fine. Again, if you're not got much to watch, right? And maybe the ticket sales don't matter as much. Or maybe we do this at tracks that doesn't have a pile of seats. Like a North Wilkesboro, like a Rockingham, like some of these short tracks or something where we're not trying to bring in 100,000 people. Because one thing you and I talked about when I said I used to go to the truck race, do you know how nice it was to leave the track and not have to like plan your exit? Like either plan to leave before the checkered, right? Or hang out in the stands until the stands empties out, then go to the car and hang out at the car for a little bit until you see actual brake lights moving instead of just red lights all the time. It's a process when you have 100 some odd. Indy's a great example. We're going to have 250,000 people or more at Indianapolis. I understand it's 2.5 miles, but Sean, you ever put 250,000 to 500,000 people in a 2.5 mile radius? It actually is not a big area for a lot of people.
Yeah, for real. It's going to take a long, long time to get out of a whole big jam like that. And that's putting it lightly.
They tell you to be in parking by 6 or 7 a.m. Race doesn't start till 11. This is what they suggest. What time do you think people are getting there, right? And then the race only takes about 3 hours-ish to run, right? So you're saying, all right, by 3 o'clock, you're hoping to be moving out of the parking lot by 5. Like that's a legitimate goal, right? So, but again, if we're doing it at a North Wilkesboro where there's I think they only had about 20,000 seats there, something in that ballpark. Does that sound right?
Something around there. It's not a large number.
No, that's on par with a basketball arena or a hockey arena, right? Where it's nothing for us to go to a game like that tips off at, puck drops at 7 or 8 or tip off is at 7 or 8, right? We don't think twice about that. So I think to your point, I think there's got to be a creative way to do it. Like, you definitely don't want it to be one of the 500-mile events, right? We're going to want to shoot for more like, okay, North Wilkesboro was 250, kind of on par with the trucks, right? Something maybe like that. I don't know. Maybe this is crazy. Run trucks on Wednesday and Cup on Friday and Sunday.
Yeah. Or you could do something kind of like sprint races, kind of like what F1 does. Really, really short races there. Have them be like the length of the truck race for Cup, and then just go shorter and shorter for all the other series. So
something like that. I think, running it maybe like a distance like a truck race midweek at some of these other tracks. Again, smaller seating, so at least we can still kind of fill the place with fans without having to pull from all over. I was way against it, Sean, but I'm kind of with you now. I don't mind the midweek, but I'm with you though. We got to shorten the actual months of the season. Like, I argue end of September, first part of October is about as late as we should go.
I kind of am in agreement with you, especially with how much of the season it even takes out of a nice old fantasy NASCAR analyst,
We could use a breather, to be fair, man. We do double dip here, so a little bit of a breather I don't think is unnecessary. So.
Yeah. Even this week we're trying to double dip, and even I guess if you really want to get crazy about it, you could even triple dip this week with the different races that are going on. Or even 4 times or 5 times if you count all 3 NASCAR races, Indy, and then the Monaco Grand Prix all at once.
Right. Which is a full day on Sunday. Although Monaco, they moved, right? It's no longer Sunday morning.
Hold on. I got to look that up again. When is Monaco?
Because I thought they moved that. I tell you what, Rocco is not cooperating these days, so we're just going to have to deal with it.
Oh, yes, no, it's still on Sunday. It's at 9 a.m.
Okay, for some reason I thought someone said they were changing it, and I was like, man, the best thing to do was wake up, have breakfast, start watching racing. I was like set for the day.
Yeah, you could just wake up and then eat your breakfast while watching Monaco, and then
exactly.
When that's over, get to Indy.
Yeah, because if it starts at 9, right about the time it ends is when Indy's going to be starting.
Yeah, pretty much. You could have a whole marathon right there just racing. So there you go.
The only break you get.
This is why Rich says it's an exciting weekend.
There's about a 2-hour window from Indy 500 to Coke 600. That's about all you get, about 2 hours.
Oh, that's the time to order a nice big fancy meal and have it delivered straight to your door and get ready for that.
Ooh, maybe I can talk the wife into that. It's not a bad idea, because usually she wants me to grill, but I think that's a better idea, especially since I'll be doing the Cup article this week, which I hopefully will. Really, my plan is to hammer a lot of it on Saturday and tweak it in the early hours.
Surprise, surprise, Guru audience. Yeah, that's right. Rich is handling the Cup content this week. So there you go.
Be advised. Be advised.
So before we move on here, do you have any other quick thoughts on particularly the truck race? Because we know that happened this past weekend too.
The truck race, it was good as advertised. We both said we were more looking forward to the truck race. We expected a little more beating and banging. It was a good show. I actually forgot who won, and I watched the whole thing. Was it Chandler Smith that won?
Yeah, Chandler Smith won after Lane Riggs got into Corey Heim there at the end, and then the two confronted each other after the race. So a lot of dramatics there, and then Chandler stuck away with the win.
And I did have in the little cheat sheet in the overview article, as long as they keep Price and Chandler down, I put Chandler on par with Riggs all the time. So if you're going to offer me a discount or better odds, Chandler's really the way I want to go. It's the same equipment. He has more experience. He has Cup experience. So I'm always going to give him. And I tell you what, the experience showed through in that race. That's twice now Lane Riggs is just he's I don't want to say he's getting greedy, but I get it. He's a young, hungry driver and wanting to get those wins, and he's pushing too hard. He did this with Hocevar. while I'll accept the Hocevar move because I think Hocevar brings on some of the frustration that he gives out, right? Like I feel like pushing him to the envelope is kind of okay. I don't think you want to do that with Corey Heim. Corey Heim is going to be in. Do you know how fun it is to see so many people now talking about why isn't Corey Heim in a Cup car? And I want to be like, MFers, where were you 2 years ago when I was yelling, this is a travesty? Y'all were freaking silent. Now it's like, this guy's going to be a champion. Really? The dude's been nothing but dominating the Truck Series for 3 years. 3 years. Duh. I should hope he deserves a Cup ride now.
He's got a development deal for Cup after all, so he's going to get there one of these days. It's just a matter of when the seat properly opens up.
But you know what? This is what bothers me. Nah. Open the seat. Don't be like, we just wait for someone to leave. F that, man. Why are you just, well, the guy brings money, so we're giving him a ride. But I tell you what, dude, I thought the name of the game was to win. If I want to win, it's like, you ever seen Ford v Ferrari, Sean?
I've been meaning to actually watch that movie all the way, but
it's on Prime for free right now.
Oh, I gotta make a mental note for myself.
Right. You need to watch it, okay? But there is a great line where Matt Damon talks to Christian Bale's character Ken and says, "Do you like losing, Ken?" "I don't lose." "Well, if you don't have a car, you can't race. You can't race. You can't win." So I go back. Do you like to lose? You know, so I mean, it's like, is it about winning or not? And I understand it's a business, but this has gotten so ridiculous. I mean, the one opportunity Heim had recently, 15, top 15, 13th place.
And best of the entire team anyway that he was driving for.
And see, the thing that bothers me about is Heim takes care of the equipment and is fast. Like, that's what Denny Hamlin did when he hopped into JGR 11 car way back when, after they had Leffler and after they had Yaley and had all these guys in it. Now the car's finishing races and finishing well. Maybe not winning, but top 10, top 15s, it's a good way to start. So, and Jamie Little, you stole my Heim time. I see you. You stole that. We've been running with that for a long time on these parts. So don't think I didn't notice. And Jamie, I love you. I stick up for you all the time when people go bashing. I want you to remember that. But it was a good truck.
It's going to be Cup time one of these days. It's just a matter of when.
Heim time's going to be Cup Heim.
Yeah.
So truck race was good. I thought Lane Riggs looked great. We pushed him. He was starting near the back. Anytime we get some of these, qualifying orders by the numbers, I feel like it's easier to find the gems because there was no way after the way Lane Riggs ran in the past. He was an easy core to build around. It's tough to not build around Heim every week, to be fair. He worked out just fine. And like I said, Chandler Smith, folks, if there is somebody, in my opinion, that's going to give Heim a run for his money for the championship, as good as Lane Riggs is, it ain't him. It's Chandler Smith. Chandler Smith can bring the consistency and the proper temperament. Lane Riggs isn't. I love Lane Riggs. But, bro, you're like me. You're a little hot-headed right now. But I'd rather pull the reins back than kick somebody in the ace. So, Riggs, I got you, but we're going to pull you back just a little bit.
He's got to just learn to control when to dial it back and not wreck himself in the process doing that. I mean, not that he didn't wreck himself, but he certainly got somebody hot and bothered that he probably should not have gotten hot and bothered, to be fair.
He took himself out of the win.
Yep.
I mean, not only did he take out the leader from the win, he took himself out of the win. And so I would argue as a racer, it's one thing to take yourself out. That's on you. But when you take yourself out and the leader, this is going to be a problem that's going to upset people. And what's going to happen is, and Carl Edwards on Dale Jr.'s, we talked about it, last month, or they were on last month. You and I talked about it. Edwards admitted, I wish I had done some things different early on. And I implore these young guys to listen to that, hear the stories about Ernie Irvin, hear the stories about Dale Sr. going back, listen to what Carl Edwards says. There's something to be said about picking your battles, picking your time and place, and understanding when is the appropriate time to really let it all hang out. And I don't think that was the appropriate time and place for Mr. Riggs.
No, it was not. And he lost the race as a result. I mean, if some of these young drivers want to look up towards a Cup driver that's trying to do their best with that a little more, you think of somebody like Ross Chastain, who's kind of calmed down a little bit, that kind of thing, within like the last year or so. So you got, yeah, see, even your dog is agreeing with me right there.
That's right. Well, he's not a big fan of people getting run over. He gets pretty upset about that stuff. He's protective.
Yeah, there you go. I think that's about all that we can really say about North Wilkesboro. But
hey,
before we,
golf clap at least a golf clap for North Wilkesboro, putting on a better show than we thought.
Right.
Hat tip North Wilkesboro.
Yeah, I'll give it credit where credit is due. So North Wilkesboro, you were all right. You're all right with me. Now, getting into what we're going on next on our rundown here, we got a news story we do have to cover here because this is racing relevant. RFK Racing, they have announced that they're going to appeal the Kansas penalty towards the number 17 team of Chris Buescher. Now, actually, funny enough, this was a penalty that did come out after we recorded our last show, so we couldn't properly cover this penalty.
No, L1.
Yeah, this was a big one right here. Let me get that up here, the details. It was for front bumper covers, I believe. That's what it was.
Didn't Brad have this issue last year with the bumper cover, or was that Denny Hamlin?
I think that may have been Hamlin, actually. Yeah, it was a violation, an L1 penalty for the front bumper cover. They violated two sections right there, 14.1.c on the overall assembled vehicle rules and 14.5.4.g on the front bumper cover right there. So essentially, they basically kind of manipulated the front bumper cover in order to move it up 2 inches further there, and that's a manipulation of a part that's provided by NASCAR, so that's a big no-no in their book.
Do it. And it's probably like something the thickness of a piece of tape that was off or something. I'm very curious to see the appeal now that they're appealing. It was a big penalty. I mean, it was really going to hurt Buescher quite a bit. Granted, he's been running fairly well. You know, we could argue Preece has been better from a speed standpoint, but Buescher's not been far off. Unlike, boy, poor Brad. I mean, he looked good on Sunday too. And then every time he looks good, he has a tire issue.
Yep. It even happened at, North Wilkesboro, another example of that. You said that right there. It's absolutely crazy how unlucky of a season Brad is having.
He really is. Really is. So I'll be curious to see how this is appealed, because, you know, they can play the angle, something happened during the race or whatever, but I don't know enough about the actual penalty as far as what they did. That we know that they made some unapproved adjustment, but what was the adjustment? What was the tolerance? How much past the tolerance? I don't know. I mean, is there an argument that there was a bump that took place during the race and changed that? Because we've seen that, right? Who was it a few years ago? The ride height was all jacked up. And then they said, oh, wait, they were involved in an incident, so it's plausible that that's why the ride height was off, so we're going to, rescind the penalty. So I don't know. We'll see, man. I tell you what, I will say this. It was nice to see somebody else talking cheating and penalties and it not be NASCAR for once, because that was a big news story this week that I'm assuming is coming up after this one.
Oh, yeah, cheating penalties. Maybe you're referring to that in a different motorsport. Am I correct about that assumption?
Whole different location, yes.
You know what? Why don't we get into it about some stuff about that other location? Because we're referring to, you want to say
Indianapolis 500. Look, there's no bigger racing spectacle than the Indianapolis 500. No offense, NASCAR fans. I love the Daytona 500, but there is nothing in the world that is a bigger racing spectacle than the Yard of Bricks in the Indianapolis 500. And what's interesting to me about this, and we'll break it down a little bit, but I just want to give you a little preference here, Sean. hearing IndyCar go beyond their rules, they legitimately said, yeah, we're so worried that the integrity is being questioned and pushed here that we're going beyond what the rules say we can do. So I'm curious. I don't think there'll be any lawsuits or anything like this because the team themselves also responded today, and we'll get into that. So a little bit of background. Team Penske, one of the most dominant teams in all of IndyCar racing. Not just, and they have a prolific history at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway as well. Rick Mears, 4-time champ. Al Unser, 4-time champ. Both got their 4th wins while driving for Penske. Danny Sullivan spin and win. I believe that was a Penske win as well. Joseph Newgarden in the last 2 years, winning back-to-back. Dan Weldon when he won. These were all Penske drivers. Oh, maybe Weldon drove for Andretti then. I better stop that one. I don't know. I'll have to look. My apologies. But Penske's got a while.
Either way, we do know Penske's been very successful because they've won the Indianapolis 500 a total of 20 times.
Exactly. Think about that. We don't even go to some tracks in NASCAR yet 20 times, right? Like a driver that's been to a NASCAR track 20 times, it's like Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin, these guys that are ancient and pushing 40. This is, kind of crazy to get 20 wins. And granted, Indianapolis goes back to, before World War I. This was meant to be a testing ground, the whole yard of bricks. I could spend a whole episode on just Indianapolis history. If anyone wanted to nerd out on it, let me know and we'll set something up at a later date. But ESPN used to do a whole month of May stuff when I was a kid. There's just so much history, and it's hard to describe until Sean, you walk into the joint, the hair in the back of your neck stands up. Like there's just something about the place, right? So Penske has this aura about him when it comes to Indianapolis. Like there's no doubt about it. So the way Indy 500 qualifying works now is they qualify the first 30. You're in the top 30, you're locked in. The top 12 of that top 30 then qualify again for the fastest 6. Now, when we say qualify, it's not one lap. At Indianapolis, you do 4 laps and they do an average, which is very interesting, obviously. Well, they obviously do spec before or tech before qualifying. Makes sense. They also teched them when they went from the top 12 or fast 12 to the fast 6. Well, during that tech process, while Scott McLaughlin was crashing on the track during his run, officials called out, I believe it was Newgarden's car. I don't think it was Will Powers. I think it was Newgarden's they called out first. And the Arians, apparently there's supposed to be some gaps. I don't have a good drawing for you guys. I apologize. They were filled in, okay? Now, this is where it gets really weird. So they look at the Will Power car and go, wait, this has got the same issue. We can't look at Scott McLaughlin's car. It's all wrecked. It's done. And I believe, though, there's maybe some photos that show it was fine. I'm not 100% sure there, but it's irrelevant because he's already wrecked the car and all things are off for him anyway. So they yank Newgarden. They yank Will Power, say, you guys aren't qualifying. Penske's pushing back, of which Chip Ganassi was like, hey, this is crap. What's going on here? Because Penske's team on the grid, on pit road, as Sean pointed out, completely illegal. You can't do this. Just like NASCAR, you can change tire pressure. NASCAR will use tape. IndyCar, they adjust a wing. Okay, you can do those things, but that's it. They were on the grid, on pit road with a grinder and blowtorch trying to clear out what was in there. No, everybody was like, we don't know what it is. It's some sort of oversight. We did it for testing or something. We're all baffled by this, okay? We don't think it's on all our cars. So Indy says, that's it. Park it. You're done. You're out. Well, overnight, they decided to go back, and the way the rules work is you're locked into the fast 12. So even if you were penalized, they should have started no worse than 11th and 12th, those last 2 drivers.
Yes.
However, IndyCar goes, and IMS goes, nope. This is a serious integrity question. Yanking them from the field doesn't seem appropriate. I disagree. I think it would have been. Doesn't seem appropriate, but we need to do something else. The rules don't allow for it. They don't call for it. Too bad. We are moving those cars to the end of the grid. You are now starting back in 31st, 32nd, 33rd, and it is what it is. Now, if you were Penske, Sean, would you turn around and appeal that ruling since it's since the rules don't catch that? Or if you were in that situation at that time, what would you do?
I mean, if you have to question the integrity of the cars right there, right then and there. So you kind of have to scrutinize it.
So if I'm Penske and I think I did nothing wrong, or I feel like I'm in a gray area, I'm pushing back on this. Okay. If I know I overstepped and I stepped on my own, you know what? I'm probably tucking my tail and biting my lip because I don't need to create any more problems. Now, here's where it's really weird. People get mad about Denny Hamlin owning a team. Dale Sr. owned a team too. Dale Jr., Michael Waltrip, and Steve Park drove for it while Dale Sr. drove for RCR, and y'all didn't complain then. Well, IndyCar takes a whole new level. Roger Penske owns IMS now. Roger Penske owns Team Penske. Roger Penske owns IndyCar. So the optics of this are just blood-curdling, right? Like, I don't care if it's not even that bad. The optics just get so much worse because you could argue this is a massive conflict of interest. Now, the reason nobody ever pushed back, there's very few that did when all this went down over the last 5 years with Penske buying IndyCar and IMS. Roger Penske has always been a top-notch, stand-up, integrity guy. You talk to anyone in the garage, they call him the captain for a reason, okay? Well, in true captain form, what happened yesterday, Sean, or today? Was it today? Yesterday.
It was today as of us doing this podcast episode.
That's right. So what did Penske do today, Sean?
Well, you could say they made some leadership changes and some very big notable leadership changes by parting ways with 3 of their top executives from the IndyCar team, including President Tim Cindric right there. So that not just that, they are also getting rid of all the strategists for the number 2 and the number 12 teams for this weekend's race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway as well. So they put the hammer down. And Roger Penske himself even put out a statement on that, too.
Yes, he did. So that brings me to my question. I was building this up, and you probably see where I'm going with it. That leads me to believe they know they cheated. Penske, whether it was Roger or somebody else in leadership, went looking and was like, we intentionally did this. Now, here's the kicker I left out, okay? This is why I think the track responded so harshly, if you will, even though I think they could have been harsher. Joseph, like Daytona, the winner of the Indianapolis 500 car goes into the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum. Highly recommend if you're ever in Indianapolis, go to the track, go to the museum, even though cars are racing. It's a wonderful visit. I love that museum. Anyway, in that museum sits last year's Indy 500 winning car. Guess what is on that Indy 500 winning car, Sean?
Oh, gee. It totally can't be the same exact problems that they just caught in this year's cars, did they? Oh, gee, I wonder.
Bingo! So now it's like, wait a second. Joseph Newgarden, who won back-to-back Indies in pretty convincing fashion. He definitely looked like the class of the field the last 2 years. What? So I think this speaks to a couple of things. One, hat tip to Roger Penske and the people there, because this was a very, I would say this is an unprecedented response, Sean. I don't know that I've ever seen this in any form of auto racing when it comes to a cheating scandal. Poor performance, sure. Money things, yes. But never from a cheating standpoint did we go, we're replacing all of leadership. Now, Tim Cindric has had his own black cloud that's followed him over the years with some of this stuff. So this is nothing new. He's been known to kind of push the envelope because Tim Cindric also used to be a part of the NASCAR team at one point back when. So this is nothing new there. I think Tim Cindric's probably going to find a job somewhere, just like what's his name that got busted cheating with Michael Waltrip. He's been a part of winning organizations, whether it's because they cheat or not, or how they cheat. The fact of the matter, the guy has been successful. What's interesting to me, like I said, is the strict penalty. And I got to believe then, to me, this almost admits we effed up. We were in the wrong. We totally screwed up. And let's not forget, this isn't the first cheating scandal for Penske, big cheating scandal for Penske in the last 12 months. St. Petersburg last year was a whole deal because of the push to pass during qualifying and stuff. Joseph Newgarden, again, was a part that was involved, was again the main factor in it. And it was, I just pushed buttons. I didn't know if it was working or not. I just figured, why not? Joseph, we may have been born at night, not last night. You know exactly what everything does in your car. You know exactly how it's supposed to feel when the push to pass button is pushed. If you hit it and it does nothing, you're probably not going to keep hitting it, because why would you keep wearing out parts of your steering wheel that cost like $5,000 or 10 grand or whatever it is these days? Stop insulting our intelligence. I want to applaud Roger because he didn't insult our intelligence. Tim Cindric did. Joseph Newgarden has. And I applaud Indy for going above and beyond the rules, because if you don't do something like this, this will continue, Sean. And there is nothing. I understand in racing, you ain't cheating, you ain't trying, and I can appreciate that. But it's up to the officials to be better than you. That's why they're there, because they have to thin it out. And if you catch it before anything goes down, I'm okay with it. Why? Penalize them with money, penalize them with points, whatever, slap on the wrist. But we want to see the best drivers, the best cars out there, but we want them all playing within the same box and the same rules. We beg NASCAR to open up the rules, but this is why I think they're hesitant to do so, or part of it. They took a lot of heat and hits on the chin for being cheating all the time. And you know what, Sean? We don't, as much as people call it out when it happens, you and I have been around a long time. There's not a lot of cheating that's going on in NASCAR these days. Not like we used to see 10, 15 years ago.
Well, that being said, though, it feels like they've been trying to catch cars for penalties even more this year than the last couple of years. I will say that much. But
that's true.
Yeah.
And you know what? Maybe it's because the teams have notes and maybe they are trying more. I mean, we all have heard the teams feel like they're in such a tight box between the driver data. So now everybody knows where Kyle Busch is lifting and Kyle Larson is lifting, right, or braking. We all know they can't do much with the geometry anymore. We all know you got to have the certain parts. And so maybe the teams are trying to get a little bit more creative, finding speed. I would rather have teams try to cheat and the series hammer them. Like, make it really painful. If you're going to cheat, we get it. But we're going to hit you with a hammer. Starting 32nd and 33rd, though, Sean, I don't know if that's even a hammer. It's a big statement. But like you and I said on the show, or before the show, do we really still count out Joseph Newgarden? Let's just assume that the cheating didn't have that significant of a difference, okay? Let's assume that it's like a 2% difference, all right? I'm just throwing out a stupid number. Does that really change your view on Joseph Newgarden and how you view him for the race this weekend?
I still think he's going to end up still being a pretty solid contender regardless, because even if one thing on the car is off, you still got the rest of the car to play around with, the rest of the parts to play around with. That's still not going to change. So even if it affects the speed and handling a little bit, it's still a top-notch car you're dealing with. So you know he's going to have a nice performing car when it comes to race day right there regardless.
And see, I think that's my problem, is how much of it's a punishment, really? Because when you start getting to the point that the drivers had to know, and we could argue that he did or didn't, but I go back to the push to pass thing and he played dumb on. I want it to hurt the drivers more. It hurts the teams, the money, all of that, the points. But sometimes I feel like we give the drivers a pass. And I find it interesting that it's the same team, same driver that is really where all of this started at, right? St. Petersburg here, the whole nine. But I'm with you. We talked before the show. I can't put Newgarden in the top 3 or 5 because I do think this had an impact. But I'm also going to sit here and tell you, I'd have no problem betting Joseph Newgarden for a top 10. If they gave us top 10 lines, if it was minus 120, I'd bet it all day.
Yeah, that and the thing is too is that out of the 3 Penske drivers, he'd probably be the one with the lowest odds there. If they had a top 10 line on, like, say, willpower in order to get there too, that could maybe even be plus odds if you do happen to find that, and that might be worth betting too.
Well, Scott McLaughlin.
Yeah, and Scott McLaughlin too.
Right. Penske has good cars and teams. They're not going away. That's what I think is really unfortunate about this is, of all the teams, come on, man. And like somebody said, Abel, who didn't make the race, that's who you feel the most for, because you feel like he wasn't given a fair shot to qualify, right? Those 3 cars were going to make the field. So I have a hard time swallowing that pill, because it's like, I hate to break it to you, bro. You weren't going to be faster than those 3 cars anyway, okay? So you needed to find more speed elsewhere, but it's a fair argument to say he got to bum into the deal.
Yeah, pretty much. But overall, we saw a lot go down with this whole process right there. And really, the other thing that people are also talking about when it comes to this penalty is the NASCAR connection. Because, as you know,
100%.
Tim Cindric's son is Austin Cindric, who is a current Cup Series driver for Team Penske in that number 2 Ford. So this, you see, we did have a plan to bring it back to NASCAR too. I know we're a NASCAR-focused show, so there.
Well, that's the first question I asked when I saw he was removed. I said, how long is Austin Cindric still in the Penske car?
In my
it's
opinion,
a valid question.
I think it is a valid question. I know I read back up on this when we last talked about it earlier too, but he did sign an extension earlier in the year to remain with Team Penske. So he is going to be around for at least another year or two for sure. But the question now becomes, he's now going to be set towards the same standard that I think Joey Logano and Ryan Blaney are going to be had. So now, if I'm Austin Cindric, I'm using this time in order to continue performing, and I'm trying my best to get on that level of Joey and Blaney right there.
And in all fairness to Austin, I doubt he had anything to do with any of it. What we're referencing is the type of nepotism, right? We see this all the time. The Dillon boys get called out for it, but you don't hear Austin Cindric getting called out for it. But like I said, his dad has been there on the NASCAR side. And I think partly why he went to the IndyCar side was to try to create some of that separation. They don't want people assuming he's doing something special for him. But I have a hard time going, well, somehow Roger found Austin. Somehow they worked out a deal. Somehow, Tim would have had some play into that, right? And that's not going to be the case anymore. In all fairness to Austin, though, he has performed. We've talked about it. He has done this with his trajectory. And if you go back to his career, it's been about year 3 in each series that you see him do this. He's got to win at Talladega this year, so he's in the playoffs. He's done, honestly, what he needs to do at this point. He hasn't been as good as Brad and Joey, but at some of the tracks, he's been right there with them. We saw it last year at St. Louis, too, right? So We'll see, but I do think it's an interesting story to watch from that standpoint because there is a connection there. His dad did work at Penske in a high up role, and he's no longer there. And again, it is unprecedented to see those 3 people get canned like that. And the real question I have, Sean, what does Team Penske look like a year from now, speed wise? How much?
Be a very curious question.
Right. How much does continuity play into it and things are fine? I go back to, remember when Randy Dorton died with Hendrick in the plane crash?
Yeah, I do remember about that.
So that was at Martinsville, right? And it's always a big deal. And he wasn't the only one, but I'm mentioning him because he was the engine builder. He was the head engine builder for Hendrick. At that time, Hendrick had the creme of the motors. Everybody admitted Hendrick had the best motors. About a year and a half after he passed, all of a sudden, Hendrick wasn't running up front anymore. And nobody has openly said this, but I maintain that the loss of Randy had a major impact on the engine shop, which had an impact on overall speed. And it took time for them to get the right people back. So I'm very curious when we talk at this time next year, is Joseph Newgarden 5th in the standings instead of 2 or 3?
Yeah, it's a very curious question. And to your point about the whole Hendrick engine building thing, that was around 2004 when that first happened, which was a great year for Hendrick. They didn't really start to get back on the map and be up there as much until like 2006 or so.
Right.
Because 05 was kind of a down year.
They did that great through the rest of that year. But again, I would argue the technology and all of that carried over, right? You've already got your engines and your plan for it's where do you make the improvements going forward, right? Where do we get another edge? What do we do to get better? What do I do to train people? I don't know this, but did Randy's right-hand man end up leaving, right? Or did he take over and was he maybe not as good or she, whatever? I don't know. I don't have the ins and outs. But what I do know is I find patterns. And there was a pattern not too terribly long after they lost him that the performance was showing, right? And we see this with car chiefs and crew chiefs, right? Chad Knaus, then he gets into the overall competition role and all of a sudden all the cars are doing better again, right? I think he had a significant part in that, right? We see this with crew chiefs. They make a crew chief change. Ty Gibbs is a perfect example. They made a crew chief change, and
car chief
changed.
They never changed
chief.
the crew chief this year. So
I thought Cheddar Smith became the crew chief. My bad.
no, he's just the car chief. He's
car chief.
They still have Tyler Allen in the crew chief box for Ty Gibbs this year. So,
but same difference. How many people track the car chief? Well, they changed the car chief, and all of a sudden, they're not blowing up all the time.
Yeah, and they're actually showing some pretty solid speed where he can even get top 10 at times, as long as he doesn't screw himself up or the pit crew doesn't screw himself up.
What is with Joe Gibbs' pit crew lately, man? Joe Gibbs and Team Penske's pit crew, are they snorting something during the race? Like, what is going on?
Well, you know what it is with those JGR pit crews? Those JGR pit crews are either really great or they end up choking at the worst of times.
Dude,
and not much in between.
They step on each other all the time when it seems like it matters. And this used to happen all the time with Truex, and now you're seeing it carry over to Briscoe. Just unbelievable. A perfect example, team sport. It's still a team sport.
Although I do think that part of those, particularly for the 19 team, I think part of that is on the crew chief, though, too.
That's fair. There's been some really bonehead calls, like not telling him when to go at the right time, or give him a heads up when he's coming in. I mean, he's dropped the ball a few times on that regard. So anyway, well, should we get into Charlotte now?
Let's quickly wrap up the Indy discussion with some picks and bets here, because we did list some here. So
yes, we did.
Let's quickly just name the names and then we'll be able to move on here. So I did name Joseph Newgarden. He's kind of like a longer-ish, kind of guttish shot for me to win at plus 1,000. But the three main guys that I'm on in order to win are Pat O'Ward at plus 500, Alex Palou at plus 550, and Takuma Sato at plus 900 right there. I think those are the three guys that I'm most confident in right there.
So I'm right with you. Sato's my guy for the week. That's just someone I've been feeling so far over the last week or so. Pat O'Ward, boy, this guy's been so close so many times. I get why he's the favorite, but honestly, Alex Palou has just been lights out, the best driver in IndyCar this year. So I'm with you on that. I will say this: betting the rookie Schwartzman at plus 800. Here's what I got to say about that. I told the wife when he went out on his final qualified run, he's a rookie. He don't know what he don't know. He's either going to wreck it or he's going to put it on the pole. He put it on the pole. Never been to an oval before. My concern is the speed will be there. Can they keep him contained in where he needs to be for all 500 miles? I doubt it. So I'm not really pushing him for a bet, but I do think he's worth watching. Like I said, Palou and O'Ward and Sato are definitely where I'm at. I can't bet a Penske car to win. I am too stuck that I think the cheating was impact. Yes, it's been impactful to what they did and accomplished. So whether they can get through the firings or not is less of a concern for me, because these are leadership roles. I don't think it's the end of the world. We already know what we're doing for Indy. It's the fact of Joseph Newgarden's winning car last year has the same cheating parts on they did this year. So I just can't push Penske as a win. I will say this: the trifecta box that I've never seen before, that I've been begging for NASCAR to do, is up on DK for IndyCar. You can bet a trifecta box of Ward, Palou, and Sato for 50 to 1. Or is it 500 to 1?
Yeah, it's plus 5,000.
So it's 500 to 1.
Yeah, plus 5,000. And then let me see here. I'm trying to look to see if they got that in a different order right there. But
no, that'd be 50 to 1. Plus 5,000 is 50 to 1.
Yeah, that's 50 to 1 odds right there.
Yeah. So you can bet that box at 50 to 1. And honestly, I do like those guys. I don't know that I would pick them, in a horse race. Like, I know exactly where it's going to go. But gut shot, Sato, I'm with Sean. Sean and I overlap on the same three drivers. Take that as you want. We have a history of this. So for personally, I'm going to ask the wife to put $1 on the trifecta box. I have no problem betting $1 to win 50.
All right. And if it does end up hitting, then we got to do something to mark the occasion. So
that's fair enough. Fair enough. Hey, we did call Newgarden last year. Newgarden was the pick that we pushed out in Discord last year. So,
True.
And I think I called Ferrucci for a top 5 that hit. Like, I believe I hit 4 out of 5 bets or something like that last year. So as we get closer to it and some of the other bets roll in and I kind of dig a little more, it's Indy though. Chaos happens. It's racing. So don't be putting the whole life savings on these bets, people.
Yeah, truly. And I'll say this much too. Even though I spout my driver names for Indy is not my top overall motorsport to bet on there. I don't have as clean of a track record there as I do NASCAR. And also, for those that are curious to bet on F1, I'm just going to throw this out there too, because why not? Just bet on either Oscar, Lando, or Max to win. It's going to be one of those 3. I'm telling you right now.
Fair enough. I won't touch F1 with the 10-foot pole right now, but I will watch it. So, but I don't think they're bad bets, man. I'm laughing because it's a pretty. The reason I think I struggle with F1 is it does get a little redundant picking who you think will win, because there's a lot. Unlike NASCAR, where we strive for parity, in Formula One, they have no problem if a guy won 80% of the races that year. They really don't care.
That was Max Verstappen about 2 years ago right there. Right. So he won almost every single race but one.
Yeah. Mind blowing. So, well, should we talk about Charlotte, the Queen City?
Yeah, I think it is time that we go over to Charlotte right there. So as getting into our usual NASCAR business there, we got Charlotte. We got the Coca Cola 600, the longest race of the year. So this one is a real endurance test. Lots of laps up for grabs in order to lead. Lots of fastest laps that are available. We got 4 stages, 100 laps each. It's consistent right there in that regard. So teams will know when to pit, when in order to basically sprint, work on their cars, and adjust with the track right there. It is an endurance run, so you have to be ready for the long haul. And the teams that are known for making adjustments to get their cars better over the course of a day are going to be the ones to really watch. And there are a few drivers in mind that I have with that right there. And with plenty of laps available, that means we are going to need to consider some dominators for sure this race, because 400 laps available, you get a dominator that leads at least maybe a quarter of those laps, they are going to be a factor for being in the optimal lineup right there for DFS. That is for sure. And I do think that there is going to be comers and goers throughout this race too, just because we've seen it always when it comes to Charlotte. Some drivers will look good during the day, but when it gets into the deep night, they're just going to fall like a rock if they don't keep up with the track right there.
In fact, one of the tips I was going to put out there, I love that you brought that up, Sean. If you can get live lines before the sun goes down, I don't care if it's green flag or yellow flag, if you find 2 or 3 drivers that have been riding around between, say, 8th and 13th, somewhere in that range, just outside the top 10, just inside the top 10, those are the guys you're going to watch when the sun comes down. So to Sean's point, I will not be shocked. What Martin Truex did a few years ago, leading all but like 2 laps, that doesn't usually happen. We usually have someone lead a good chunk of the first half of the race and someone that leads a good chunk of the second half of the race. The track changes. And to Sean's point about the crew chiefs that know how to keep up with the track, because we will be, let's pretend it's not raining. We will be in heat of the day, sunlight. I mean, it'll be later in the evening, 5, 6, 7 o'clock Eastern time. But then once the sun goes down, and they talked about it in North Wilkesboro. They've talked about it in Indy during qualifying, just the shadows coming in as the sun went down and cooling turns 3 and 4 and how much speed was made up there. It's the same thing. So if you've got live lines, and I will be watching, so I'll try to be in the Discord and on top of it. Feel free to tag me. If you tag me, I'll be jumping in there and talking. I think we should be watching somewhere around 8th to 12th-ish and seeing what those guys look like, especially if you've got someone like a Ryan Blaney or a William Byron or a Christopher Bell that's just been kind of met all morning or all day, and they're in that spot. We're going to have a set of pit stops and watch those guys all of a sudden be big factors. So that is going to be a big story to watch. The other thing I wanted to point out, I love Kyle Larson. He's going for 1,100 miles. Talk about endurance, Sean. You said 600 is being a long way. He's going 1,100.
Yeah.
I cannot push him as the odds-on favorite at 5-1 to win Charlotte. If for some reason he ends up getting rained out at Indy, because he's already said he will be back for the Coke 600, okay? And I watched the special on Tony Stewart where he had made the same commitment, but then he was like, yeah, I don't care. I'm staying here. I'll deal with the ramifications later. I'm not leaving. Larson's already had to deal with that, so I don't think he will. But regardless, I can't bet a guy that has first of all, there's only been one driver that's actually completed all 1,100 miles.
Yeah, and it's the driver that you already mentioned there, Tony Stewart.
Right. And Tony Stewart, the first time, completely exhausted, had to have a special trainer, a personal trainer the next time. Even the next time when he had a great run, he was wore out in the car and said it. I gave it everything I got. I got nothing left. Now, Larson's in much better shape. But look, the goal is top 6, top 3, right? Isn't that the big numbers that because Tony got 3rd at Charlotte after finishing 6th at Indy?
Yeah, that is correct, actually. You did get that right there. And as far as Larson is concerned, I will say this, that I do think no matter what happens, that 5 car is going to be fast based on the trends that we've seen at the intermediate tracks this year.
I started typing him up as my favorite for both the core and the betting. And then I went, Rich, you can't do this. Like the sheer odds of him pulling that off after going to Indy are so small that I can't push that. That said, if he's not doing Indy 500, Kyle Larson would be my favorite for both DFS and betting this weekend.
You may want to watch for that if you're doing live betting, especially, because I think that's where you can make money off of that too.
Well, especially if they have to move him to the back, right? They're automatically going to move his odds, right? Because whether it goes to plus 500 or plus 800 or something like that, just like we saw with Joseph Newgarden. Joseph Newgarden was not going to be plus 1,000 had they not got to move to the back, right? So you're spot on there, and I'm with you. And look, Justin Allgaier looked good in that car last year. So it's not like this car wasn't fast last year. You know, it's just I'm saying from a strategic betting standpoint, I don't think it's a good idea to bet the odds-on favorite, who's also the guy trying to go 1,100 miles that's only been accomplished once and is hoping to be a 6-3 type finisher when that's the best it's ever been.
Yeah, truly, because no driver's ever been top 5 in both legs of doing the Memorial Day double before. So.
Right. And maybe Larson runs 20th at Indy and it's not an issue on that side. Maybe he gets out of the car early or whatever because of rain. And look, if Larson is at Charlotte, let's say something happens, the engine blows, he only does 200 miles at Indy, I will change my stance that Kyle Larson will be my favorite bet to win the race for the week. But we won't know that, Sean, until 2-3 o'clock on Sunday.
Yeah, pretty much. But this is why I say, if you're going to go for Kyle Larson, any kind of betting, live betting is the way to go.
I'm with
or
you.
Just monitor the situation and do your betting right before the race begins with that.
Yeah, and try to be before the book moves lines. Like if you're watching Indy and you see that engine smoke, jump in there, put your online bet in now for Kyle Larson, because by the time he gets back to the pits and it's official, they will move the lines or lock them.
Exactly. So that's the strategy as far as Larson is concerned. If for some reason he does have to hop out of the car early, I believe Tony Kanaan is filling in for him on the Indy side of things. And if for some reason he can't get to the Cup race right away or there's some sort of issue, Justin Allgaier is on standby. So there you go. That's setting the stage up right there. How about we get into our list of part-timers and notables? Because, boy, do we have a huge list right here for trucks and Xfinity this week.
Every time we go to Charlotte, man, that's how it goes. So for trucks, Brandon Jones back in the #1 Tricon Garage Machine, Nathan Bird in the 02 Young's Motorsports, Cody Dennison back #2 Rome Brothers Racing, BJ McLeod making a start with the 07 Spire. I tell you what, I didn't know this, Sean. I'm kind of excited for it because when BJ McLeod's had some fast cars, he hasn't looked terrible. I'm curious to see him in the number 07 Spire Motorsports, along with Kyle Busch is back at Charlotte in the number 7 Spire Motorsports. All right, Kyle. Mason Maggio
Wait
in
a
the number
minute.
20.
Hold on. I think I may have forgotten to change that from the past week because I want to say that I think somebody else is in the 7 for Spire this week.
Well, here,
Let me
I'll
double
look
check
it up
that.
real quick. I'll look it up right now. Oh, I can continue reading if you're going to look that up then. We'll come back to Kyle. Mason Maggio, number 22, Rome Brothers Racing. Ross Chastain back in the Nice Motorsports truck, number 44.
Okay,
Watch
it
out
is
for
Kyle.
Ross.
I checked it right there. It is Kyle.
Okay. I was going to say it made sense. So Kyle Busch, number 7 Spire Motorsports. Ross Chastain, 44 Nice. So we got a couple of Cup guys. Timmy Hill will be in the number 56 Hill Motorsports. Don't sleep on him. Luke Baldwin, the 66 ThorSport Racing. And Sean, I feel bad. I forgot to mention last week that Luke Baldwin is the son of Tommy Baldwin. That matters to me. But Luke Baldwin is back in the 66. And as Sean pointed out last week, he's shown speed. Patrick Emmerling in number 75 Henderson Motorsports.
Actually, I do have to correct that right there because that one is the one that is incorrect. That one actually in the number 75 is Parker Kligerman this week, not Patrick Emmerling.
Oh, Parker, I'm a wuss Kligerman? Okay, good to know.
Yeah, because that actually makes a big difference right there because Parker's a more competitive driver than Patrick is.
He is, but he's a pusillanimous. So we'll leave it at that. which is a real word, Sean. You can look it up.
All right, I might have to do that after the show.
and where that is coming from is I saw a highlight from Coda where Parker and Sage Karam were getting together, and the engine tuner's a big beefy guy was doing the whole in between, and Parker's like, he's a gentle giant, roads are heated, we don't need things that you are a wuss, Parker. I no longer respect you calling races anymore because you are a wuss. And I am on record as saying that. And guess what, dude? You're smaller than me. So feel free to send your giant whatever bodyguard engine tuner you want because Sage Karam's not that big of a guy. I know he wrestled, but you're a wuss, dude. I just don't have patience for that. Sorry, I had to get that out because Parker upset me today. Justin S. Carroll, number 90, Terry Carroll Motorsports truck. And that's all of it for Truck Series.
All right, now getting into the Xfinity Series here, we got a very interesting list right here. So we got Austin Dillon is back in the number 3 for Richard Childress Racing Indy Xfinity Series. That's important because it is Xfinity Series RCR and not Cup Series RCR right there.
Xfinity Series RCR is really good.
Yeah, truly. Then we have Nick Lights in the 07 for SS Greenlight Racing. Another Cup driver coming down to Xfinity this week, William Byron in the number 17 for Hendrick. And then we have another Cup driver right after that. Chase Briscoe is in the number 19 for Joe Gibbs Racing in Xfinity this week. Then we have Catherine Legg in the number 32 for Jordan Anderson Racing. Carson Ware in the number 35 for Joey Gase Motorsports. Brad Perez in the number 45 for Alpha Prime Racing. The 53 car for Joey Gase Motorsports apparently has an entry, but I do not have listed who the driver is.
It was still to be determined. My guess is they're probably going to pull that car, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. Then there's Dawson Cram in the number 74 for Mike Harmon Racing and CJ McLaughlin in the number 91 for DGM Racing. Now, the Xfinity Series field is interesting because out of all the entries, 2 of them are not going to make the race, so do keep that in mind right there.
It is fun to see 3 Cup guys in it, though. It's been a long time since we've seen that many Cup guys in it. I wish Kyle Larson was driving this one, too, so he could talk some of that smack. But he's up at Indy.
Yeah, that's right.
So on the Cup Series, we got Derek Cross is back with 44 NY Racing. That's the team I helped out when I went to Dega a few years ago, Sean. Good group of guys. Yep. We did it in the Truck Series, though. I've got photos of me removing the transponder from the truck on pit road.
I'm gonna have to see that later, man. That's cool.
that was kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie. Josh Balicki, number 66, Garage 66, and Sean, you're gonna crap yourself when you see later on in the show here. But we got Jimmy Johnson, the number 84 Legacy Motor Club, and yes, I called him Legacy Motor Club, not the soccer club. And Connor Zilic, the number 87 for Trackhouse Racing. Boy, I really hate when Trackhouse keeps stealing all these JRM guys. I got to tell you. And as you noted, Justin Agar will be the Kyle Larson substitute if needed. Go ahead.
And about Connor Zilic, I do have to address this right here because even though Connor Zilic does drive for JRM, he is a Trackhouse Racing development driver. So he is eventually he's in a development deal with Trackhouse, so he works with them personally. And that JRM entry that Zilic is driving is a collab entry between the two teams.
Okay. Daniel Suarez, look out, bro. You got probably 1-2 years, and you're going to lose that ride, buddy. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes, but we do know that Daniel's in a contract year right here, so.
Well, maybe we see Connor Zilic next year in the car. Yeah. Yes, sir. All right. Well, as always, if you like the content that's here, please head over to fantasyguru.com. Click the subscribe button. Check out all the packages. We've had baseball on discount if you're into baseball. The MVP package that gets you all the content that's not football and baseball, gets you basketball and hockey for 12 months, along with the racing and the esports and the golf and the soccer. So it gets you covered for 12 months, gets you everything except, football and baseball, which is its own animal because, frankly, they deserve to be their own animals. They're the reason fantasy sports pretty much exists. But I believe that the baseball is still discounted. And, where else can you get the Oracle's content? Ray Flowers, right? So check that out. And as Sean mentioned, early bird pricing on football is out. Don't be slow to get. Don't be like the folks that wait till middle of August and start cramming football info, and they're bummed that they had to pay a premium price for the package. If you get with us early, you won't have to cram. I know I sound like a college professor, but you won't have to cram. And you get a discount. So consider that. And again, if things are tight, reach out to support@fantasyguru.com. Tell them what you're looking for. Tell them what you want to do. We can pretty much customize with all the packages we have. We'll be able to figure out something that works for you.
Yeah, couldn't have put it right better myself there, Rich. Good job today with that.
I'm trying to be better, man. I really am. I'm very proud to be at Fantasy Guru. I feel lucky to have the opportunity. So, look, I may be lost, but I know where I want to be. So,
you know what we got to do then? We got to help the rest of the Fantasy Guru listeners find where they want to be, and that's earning money through NASCAR this week. Let's get into our picks for Charlotte right there. This is where the fun begins.
Let's do it.
On my list, I have Christopher Bell, Ryan Blaney, and Ross Chastain for my top price drivers to watch right there. Now, Christopher Bell, he is the defending winner of this race, even though he won it in a rain-shortened event. That 20-car team and that 20 team, they've been on another level this year, and they've been one of the most consistent teams at the intermediate tracks this year. So I like Christopher Bell quite a bit. And he is coming off an all-star win. That's momentum right there.
I love it. I can't get there with Ross, though. You're going to have to sell me on Ross.
So when it comes to Ross, he's actually had some pretty solid finishes at Charlotte in recent years. And let's not forget about a few years ago, 2022, he led a lot of laps at this place too. In fact, actually, he's led so many laps that within the past 3 races there since the next-gen car, nobody's led more laps than Ross Chastain at Charlotte. So make of that as you will. And on top of that, when you talk about teams that have to adjust their car over the course of a run, Ross Chastain and that number 1 Trackhouse team have been one of the best this year at doing that. Because how many times can you say this year Ross has started out horribly during a weekend, only in order to sneak up and get inside the top 10 for a top finish by the end of the race? We've seen it so many times this year. They got a good feel for adjustments over the course of the run, and that's what you need in order to have success at Charlotte. And you could say the same kind of thing for Ryan Blaney and that number 12 team as well. And they've also had their fair share of solid finishes at the intermediates this year as well, too.
So I'm taking a little bit different angle. I'm with you on Bell. And I know Hamlin here's my challenge with Hamlin, because I do buy into momentum. They're not on the right side of momentum, but the speed has been there. A clutch, the fire. None of these things are not showing speed, right? It's other things. And so I'm still willing to be there in Hamlin. And look, Hamlin's had a good history at Charlotte. So has Bell. So is Byron. Now, Byron doesn't have a win in the last 3 years there. Hendrick has struggled a little bit overall, but this used to be Hendrick's track. In fact, one thing I want to mention, we haven't seen as much with this car, but for years, I would look for the car that would hug that white line around the bottom. They may not be the fastest in qualifying and all of that, but I tell you what, if you were sitting there for 600 miles, that guy that was hugging that white line around the corners, they were always there at the end. And I don't know, because as the sun goes down, track cools, gets a little tighter and faster. I don't know if maybe that's where it comes from, that they know they can be there shorter distance a little bit, but that seems to happen. And the Hendrick teams have always done that. I mean, Jeff Gordon did that. Then Jimmy Johnson did that. I mean, at one point between Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson, they had like 3/4 of the Coke 600 wins over a span. So this is where I'm coming from with Byron. Like I said, if Larson wasn't in the 500, Larson's my pick. So for me, it's the next best option is the teammate garage. Like we've talked about, Sean, the 5 and 24. So I'm leaning Byron. They do a decent job with the adjustments. It's been kind of hit and miss at times, but there's also been multiple races where you're like, oh, Byron's still here in the top 5. Where did he come from? And it's been some bad luck with some of the finishes lately. So give me Byron, give me Bell, give me Hamlin. I want the veteran guys. I want the speed guys. You've got me a little bit there on Ross, especially at the price point. So it's worthwhile because, as Sean pointed out, moving up, scoring top 10s, that's what we want for DFS. Me saying these are guys that are fast enough to win is one thing. That doesn't necessarily pay the bills for DFS. So good call out on Ross Chastain. I don't know what it is, Sean. I can't get there on Blaney right now. It's a gut shot call. I don't know if I feel like I'm haunted by the Darlington issue, or there's been a couple of other issues on pit road, but for some reason I can't quite get there with Blaney, although my brain is saying he's going to be one of the fastest cars on the circuit this weekend. So I don't disagree with any of your picks.
So if you need a little more convincing on Blaney right there, remember he led 124 laps at Homestead, and the last 2 races on 1.5-mile intermediate tracks were both third place finishes, Kansas and Texas. So that right there, and he's also won in the next gen car at Charlotte before too in the 600. Let's not forget that either.
Yeah, he has. He does have a Coke 600 win. So like I said, for some reason, I think it's more of a gut shot because my brain's like, yep, you should be all in. And my gut's going, I can't get there and I can't put my finger on it. So I also want to be in on Reddick. He has done very, very well. He's the only guy with a top 10 finish in the last 3 oval races, the Coke 600. Everyone else has 2. Actually, maybe someone else did have 3, but he was there was only 2 drivers.
He's the only one.
He was the only one. Okay. That's what I thought. So he's the only one with 3 top 10s in the last 3 years. But I got to tell you, Sean, he has not been looking great the last month. Like shows good, then not. Then does, then not. I can't seem to get there.
Yeah, I'm a little bit iffy on Reddick this week too. I need to see a little bit more out of that number 45 team because they just seem a little bit off this year. Like they have the speed at times, but then they kind of bite themselves out of good finishes this year.
How many teams have been doing that this year? Like, I feel like, you pointed out, seems like NASCAR's looking more for penalties. I feel like teams have shot themselves in the foot more this year collectively. Like, maybe Truex did more of it by himself for a year. But I mean, whether it's been Briscoe that you mentioned earlier, Hamlin's team, Bell did it earlier. Byron did it when he got into what's his name and wrecked the front of his nose when he really didn't need to push the envelope. Blaney a couple of times this year on pit road. It seems like all these guys can't get out of their own way.
Yeah. Even Logano at Phoenix earlier in the year too.
Perfect example. Yes. So, well, let's hit the mid-tier guys. Who do you got, Sean?
Well, one more thing I did want to actually add on before that, because this was an interesting fact that I've noticed, but in the next-gen car, regarding Byron, he's the only Hendrick driver with a top 5 finish within the last 3 races at Charlotte.
What?
I'm
I
not
heard
even
you. I'm
kidding.
just,
Yeah.
I know. I'm processing because I'm going, Larson? Really? Larson? But he wasn't in last year's Coke 600. Allgaier was, and he was on his way to a top 10 finish. And Chase has not been good lately here. I don't know why. He was 4 years ago. And yeah, Bowman's been a top 10 guy, but he's not been a top 5 guy.
Yeah, 2023, Kyle Larson, he got involved in an accident, finished 30th, and then 2022, he finished ninth. He had a good car and led 51 laps at one point, but then I believe he got bit by an issue mid-race and then just couldn't recover to a top 5. So Byron being the only one of the Hendrick drivers to get a top 5 in the next-gen car is kind of crazy.
Well, maybe I'm off on my Hendrick take here, Sean. You got me a little panicky, but I still feel like Hendrick also circles dates on calendars. Like, we used to dominate here and we've sucked lately type of thing. So that's where I'm kind of coming. I didn't know they would have been that bad, but it was like I feel like Hendrick is due because they used to be so good here and they just haven't been the class of the field. So that's kind of where I'm at. That's a fantastic stat, though, Sean.
Yeah, I had to get that out there because
that's a good
that
one.
That actually blew my mind a little bit as I looked at it.
That's why I said I'm sorry. What? So, well, hit me with your mid-tier guys. I want to hear about these.
All right, so mid-tier drivers that I have on my list, I have, speaking of Hendrick, Alex Bowman right there. Then I have Bubba Wallace and then Ryan Preece. So
you love you some Preece.
Well, I mean, I have been loving Preece this year, but that I have my good valid reasons for it because
you do. I'm not knocking it, man. I'm just saying you love you some Preece, and I dig it. I'm just saying you love you some Preece.
I mean, the DFS sites continue to price him where he's not been performing this year, and on top of that, it's at the 1.5 mile tracks. He's actually been quite incredible at this track type this year. You go forth and you look at the 4 races we had at 1.5 mile tracks, top 10 finishes in 3 of the 4. The only one that he didn't was Texas, and he was on track to get another top 10 finish, but got involved in a wreck. So that right there, he's just been really good at this track type, and he has gotten positive place differential in his last 2 Charlotte appearances, even though it was an equipment that you can say is not as good as the equipment he's in now.
And you could say he had one of the best or maybe the best car at the All-Star race this past weekend.
Truly. That 60 team, I'm telling you, you should not want to sleep on this team because they've been performing on a higher level than most people are not willing to admit.
I think the problem is he's the 3rd car and the add-on, right? And they're seeing how Brad's performing and Buescher's kind of doing okay. And it's like they completely forgot that here's a guy on the new team who's only been full-time for a couple of years because he was only at Stewart-Haas full-time, short-term, right? So, no, I wanted to talk about it because I have not been pushing Preece enough or using him enough. Where I have, it's worked, right? And look, you and I talked about it last year. I thought Preece deserved. I couldn't wait for Tony Stewart to get him in a full-time ride. I felt like he deserved this years ago. Then, we looked at SHR and they just did not have the speed the last 2 years. And that was glaringly obvious, right? I mean, from the whole team as a whole. So to see him, and it's unfortunate that Brad gives up everything to give to the new guys, but I get why, and a hat tip for him for doing it. But I'm with you on Preece, and and look, that's another guy that knows what to tell the crew chief, the car chief. He has experience. He and Barry remind me a lot of each other in that they really don't want to tear up equipment. They don't want to drive over their skis. But when they've got fast vehicles, they know it, and they're willing to drive it accordingly. And I would argue they are 2 of the most throwback drivers we have. If you want to talk about how Denny and those guys talk about the new driver these days, Barry and Preece are not it. They are a throwback. Joey Logano is more a new age driver. I'm hoping him watching that video, maybe he realized, hold on a second. I might need to just cool my jets a little bit in the car because I've gone a little too much with it. but you'll never see Priest and Barry do that stuff, man. They just
No.
won't.
Yeah, absolutely. And the crazy thing is too, is that we even before then, you look back towards their results. Well, both of these drivers were still making gains with what they could have gotten out of the equipment even the last year or two.
They were
proving it even more so now. Now that they're in even better equipment, they're looking great. And I just think that the DFS sites are not giving them their due diligence. But hey, that's where all of us can take advantage of that for our own lives.
Yeah, it's a great angle. Sell me on Bubba Wallace, because I wanted to get there on Bubba, Sean, but it's more of, I feel like the momentum's gone the other direction for Bubba than it did a month ago. So I'm just kind of on a fade with him.
So regarding Bubba, 2311, they are a Gibbs-aligned team, and Gibbs has probably been the best team at Charlotte the last 2 years or so. And Bubba, he's had some solid runs within the last 2 years as well. He finished 4th in 2023 and 11th last year. He gained positive place differential in both cases. And even though he does not have the finishes to show it, Bubba Wallace, he's been at his fastest when it comes to the intermediate 1.5-mile tracks. And he's led in 2 of the 4 Cup events at the track type this year. 20 laps at Vegas, 56 at Homestead. In Homestead, he also finished 3rd. If he can get past some bad luck, I say watch out. And the price is definitely low enough, too. He's about, 7,300 on DraftKings? Yeah, 7,300. That's a low enough price that I'd be willing to take a shot for a driver that is likely in order to compete for a top 10 finish right there.
That's fair. The numbers back it up. I again, just so people know my background, if I'm uneasy, I don't want to push it. I've had better success when I'm trusting my head and gut, so to speak. And when I can't get the two to mesh, I'm try to be open and honest about that. I also take a lot of recent speed into consideration. So you'll see that with the group I'm listing here. It may shock you, but if I see speed and the finishes aren't there, that's where I'm going. Bubba, a month ago, I felt like had the speed and the finishes weren't there. Now I feel like he's struggling a little bit, and I don't know why. I don't know if he's pressing, but not only has the finishes not been there, but we haven't seen him quite be as competitive the last 3 weeks that we did a month ago. So that's why I'm just kind of pushing back a little bit. Track history matters. These guys are at home. There's something to be said about sleeping in your own bed the night before you get to go to the race. Like, I don't know. People that don't play sports and don't have to travel, I don't know that it can be understated, but it's a whole different ball game when these teams get to go to Charlotte because they're all home. That's why we see so many extra drivers and extra seat time. This is home base for just about everybody.
Yeah, it is. And regarding the whole thing about Bubba, too, and why you also haven't seen him get those finishes, he's been involved in accidents in the last 2 points-paying races right there,
he has.
too. So.
He has, but he wasn't really running up front before the accidents was my concern. A month ago, he was running top 5, and then something happened where he was in 8th at the time and got wrecked, right? Now we're seeing him more in that 10 to 15 range and getting involved in these wrecks. That's where my concern is. I felt like he was top 5 speed, top 8 speed a month ago, and now and maybe I'm misremembering, Sean. That's very plausible. I don't always get to go back and rewatch every race I want to watch and all that. I wish I could. Russ joked, what do you mean by a deep dive in NASCAR? I go back and watch old races. Like, I don't mean classics. I mean, I try to find last year's race. I tried to read the review of the race. Oh, so-and-so got a pit road penalty with 20 to go. That's why I don't remember what happened, because I thought they were fast, right? So anybody can call me out for misremembering. You're not going to insult my opinion. You're not going to insult me.
All right. Well, there you go. Now, I know we share some of the same drivers right there, but I know you've mentioned Josh Berry. I actually considered him a little bit, too, for my own list, so I'll give you some due diligence there. But the other driver on your list, I think, is a very interesting name. I want you to talk about that one.
I can't get off the Ty Gibbs train. And I know people are going to be upset with me, and I'll tell you why. Up until 6 weeks ago, with the Cheddar Smith move, Gibbs was nothing. I mean, when I say nothing, the finishes, the speed, None of it was there. They were blowing motors, pouring chocolate milk on the track. It was horrid, okay? Excuse me. Since then, we've seen him practice fast. We've seen him qualify well. We've seen him run inside the top 5. And not just at one style of track. It's been in all the different styles we've hit for the last 6 weeks. The finishes have not been there. Some of it has been, like Sean's talked about, stepping on their own foot, getting in their own way, that sort of stuff. But I go back to, this was a young, talented driver. The team is going to give him anything and everything he needs. He dominated coming up in trucks. He dominated coming up in Xfinity. He dominated in ARCA. I guess he didn't do too much in trucks, but he dominated in every other thing he came up in. The speed is finally there. Now, I am the type, I will keep betting this just like Denny Hamlin. I will keep betting the speed till I feel like I don't see the speed. The finishes will come at some point. And I understand when we're playing with money, this is dangerous because we could be taking it in the shorts because they're not getting the finishes. But at some point, I want to be on the front side of that. I want to take advantage of Gibbs at the right price point. I want to take advantage of Josh Berry, Ryan Preece at the right price point before they pop. So for all the things we like about Ryan Preece and Josh Berry, Ty Gibbs is in the same boat. It's just a shorter sample size. It's only been very recent history where we've seen it from Berry and Preece all year long. So is it more risky with Gibbs? Yes. But to your point, Sean, Gibbs has been really good here in this car. We're already on Bell and Hamlin to some degree. We even think Briscoe might be kind of sneaky. I can't get away from Ty Gibbs. And is his price a little higher than I want? Yes, but in my opinion, that makes him contrarian, which means we could take, if Ty Gibbs has a top 5 finish and he's only 8% owned, we are going to be in a good place as far as potentially placing money.
So, yeah, I do think I have to agree with the fact that I do think he is a contrarian tournament play, and that's so far where I'm going to leave him. My main concern with Gibbs is him qualifying, because the thing about him is that he's been qualifying top 10 in the last couple of races, and that's been a little bit hard for me in order to really love him, because he's, even with the improved speed, he is yet in order to get the finishes inside the top 10 right
True.
there, especially at the intermediates. 23rd at Texas, 28th at Kansas, even 17th at Talladega, where he led 32 laps. You got to go all the way back to Bristol for his last top 10 finish. And yeah, Bristol's a great track for Gibbs. But
I will say this.
Yeah.
I'll throw Talladega out of it. Okay. I think that's a reasonable stance to make. Okay. At Texas, he was one of the better cars. I mean, throughout most of the race. I mean, to the point they were talking about it, he was top 3. Just like other drivers that got caught up in stuff during that race, he got caught up in something. And if I remember correctly, at Texas, it wasn't his fault. I believe it was similar to kind of what Bubba was dealing with, where there's nowhere to go and he got collected. Kansas was different. I expected a better performance from him from Kansas. But when these guys are doing this, we're going to see a little bit of the ebb and flow. This track, and I don't think we should lose this part of this either. There's a little bit of a growing curve here for Ty Gibbs because he lost his dad at the end of, when he won the Xfinity Championship. And I don't know that it's really been talked about or whatnot, but I think that has impacted him. And I just feel like being at home in Charlotte with the speed that they've had, and it is a bit of a gut shot, Sean, and I agree with you. There's better plays if we're going to chase points differential. But we all also know we got to get a contrarian guy in the lineup, and that is what I kind of like. I feel like I'm calling my shot, just like I said he would qualify well a month ago or whatever when he did. He didn't finish well, so I ate my words there. Calling my shot now. I'm saying it with my chest. I think Ty Gibbs has a top 5, top 10 performance this weekend.
I think
bold.
The speed is.
That's bold.
I do think the speed is there enough that I'd be willing to take a shot at it in a tournament lineup setting, but it's a little qualifying dependent for me too, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
Sean, I don't mind you pushing back on it. It is a bold call. I expect to be on an island on this. I need you to push back and call out the fluff. I just can't shake that. I feel like there's something calling me, man, that Joe Gibbs is also home in Charlotte. I remember running into him and his wife when I waited tables. I just feel like the stars are pushing this direction. It's not a name that's talked about. And how often do we go to the Coke 600 and something surprises us? This is my bet for the surprise.
My only other concern about that number 54 team is Tyler Allen, the crew chief. Him being a rookie Cup Series crew chief is my only other concern about it, too.
Well, now that is a really valid point, because you could argue that at Texas, part of the problem was they didn't keep up with the track. I would hear you if you would say that was your beef, and I would say it's probably valid, right? Because he was way faster the first third of that race, and then it was like a battle, right? To your point, if you can't keep up at this track, if you can't, let me phrase that. If you can't keep up at Texas, good luck keeping up at Charlotte when we're going day and night racing. So from a logical standpoint, I can't argue with you, Sean. It's a very valid point. I just can't shake this gut shot feeling, man. And feel free, people, don't bet it. Push back on me. I get it. It's just, this is where I'm at right now. And look, I reserve the right to change my mind before Sunday. You may see me write in Sunday's article, I'm out on Gibbs. I'm out. I can't. He's qualified third. Practice times were weird. I don't want any part of it. That said, if he is third, I could see myself betting it, hoping we get some dominator points to start the race. And even if he, trails back to 15th, if he leads a bunch of laps, it'll work. Just simply because he won't be high owned.
Yeah, I do think there's a realistic chance that it could go that way too. I think it could go either way. I just want to see more on Gibbs.
That's
and where
fair.
He's starting.
Sean,
That's really what's going to seal it for me.
I am not arguing with your stance on it at all, bro. I'm really not. And I know I was going to be on an island when I picked it. And let's be fair, money's going to come down to it too. Josh Berry and Ryan Preece are much more affordable than Ty Gibbs. I shouldn't say much, but $500, $600, $700 is pretty significant. I mean, that's a potential tier depending on where you're at when you pick your drivers. So, and those are also two drivers that we are expecting, place differential points from. So, again, I'm with you, tournament only, but that's what I've been playing. So that's where I was coming from. But let's talk about the sleepers.
Yeah, let's get right into some of the value picks right here. So, I've got 3 on my list. I've got Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Zane Smith, and Shane Van Gisbergen. So, overall, it's an interesting trio that I got. I think you and I can both agree about Ricky, especially for the price point, his track history. And really, Ricky's been performing at a pretty solid level overall this season. I think the DFS sites have not fully caught on to putting him within that 7K range yet. I think he belongs there with how well he's been performing. But, Stenhouse, I really like Stenhouse overall for this week as it sets up.
2 top 10s in the last 3 Charlotte Oval races, man.
Truly. And he has an average finish of 15.0, and really, it could have been even better had it not been for the 31st place finish, but I'm pretty sure he ran into some issues with that. But if you ignore that, he also has 4 finishes of 12th or better in the last 5 races at Charlotte, so that's saying
I'm with you on Stenhouse. We overlap on Stenhouse. Sean and I are on the same page on Stenhouse. I think that's an excellent call.
Yeah, pretty much. I think we're both in on Ricky here, but the other 2 drivers here, we differ a little bit on that, to put it lightly.
You were probably shocked when you saw my list, Sean.
I'm gonna say this, but I don't dislike either of the picks here too. I don't dislike them.
No, but I bet you were shocked to see the one name. That's a teaser. We'll let Sean list his, and then we'll get into my show.
Well, I already listed my 2 other
did.
Drivers right there.
So,
I said Zane and SVG.
So I like the Zane call. He's been good on the 1.5 miles. I think that's awesome. I'm also with you in SVG. People are sleeping on SVG. He's starting to figure out these ovals a little bit. And while I'm not like all in how we liked him last year when he was underpriced, they're back to underpricing him, and he has been very good. So I'm with you there. And we already talked about Stenhouse. So my other 2 guys, he's a little pricey, but I want me some Connor Zillage. Every time I see this kid in a car, man, it's fast. It's going to be a Trackhouse machine. So it should have some speed, we hope, right? I'm really curious to see what his practice times are, say, compared to Suarez. Suarez isn't terrible here, but I'm really curious. If Zilich is noticeably faster than Suarez, I think it's worth noting. He is priced down enough. It's a wild card shot. I don't know that his ownership will be very high. Again, I'm hoping contrarian GPP type style. I'm really impressed with this young man, Connor Zilich. We heard me talk about with the accent. I was worried. Him getting back into it, doing double duty is pretty impressive. So hopefully the back is fine because it's going to be a very uncomfortable 600 miles if not. But I like me some Connor Zilich, and this is, where I was at with Heim 5 years ago is about where I'm at with Zilich right now. So I'm there. This is the one I thought you were probably going to just shake your head and roll your eyes. I'm going Jimmy Johnson. He is priced way down. Jimmy Johnson, and here's why. I started referring him back to the Legacy Motor Club. I hate that name, but that's the name they called themselves. The speed is getting there. John Hunter Nemechek has looked better. Eric Jones has looked better. John Nemechek has looked surprisingly good at times, okay? I know Jimmy's not used to this car. I know that's a problem. But there is nobody during his career that was better at Charlotte than Jimmy Johnson. I mean, I thought Jeff was the best here. He gave Jeff a run for his money and then some. He's so cheap, Sean. And since he's been so bad for the most part outside of Daytona, I don't know that a lot of people are going to be on him. So this is one of those qualifying dependent things. If he qualifies in the top 10, talk about a contrarian play. Yes, I don't know that I could do it. But if he qualifies in the top 10, I think he's capable of finishing in the top 20, top 15. I'm not worried about the endurance. I'm not worried about him finding a line. I'm worried about the car having speed. And if it qualifies that well, it'll have speed. So I think for a punt option, I think Jimmy Johnson's a sneaky play this week, Sean. I mean, his Charlotte numbers are just insane.
This was his track, this and Dover. They used to nickname this Jimmy's house for a period of time there.
Well, it was sponsored by Lowe's. So we would go, it was Lowe's Motor Speedway, and he was sponsored by Lowe's. And oh my gosh, I'm sure they threw everything in the kitchen sink at it when they came here, right? And then, like you said, nobody else drives Dover like he does. I mean, they used to call this Jimmy's house, and they used to call, what did they call Dover? I just know that was, he just drove it differently. Everybody talked about that.
Yeah, and then Jimmy said that Dover is his personal favorite track, so that right there should say something too.
I agree. So that's where I'm at. I'm a little off the reservation, so to speak, Sean. That's why I thought for sure you'd be like, I can't believe he just put that name in there. I thought you might crap yourself. I'm not going to lie.
I'm not crapping myself because I actually think that there is a little bit of room in order to play Jimmy Johnson this week. If I'd be crapping my pants more about that, it'd be you just acknowledging anything positive about Jimmy Johnson, considering how negative you've been on him.
Well, and I named it the Legacy Motor Club. I didn't call him the soccer club, man. Hey, I reserve my right to change my opinion. Like I said, I got to cool my jets on Joey since he came out and was like, yeah, I was a dude. Damn it, Joey. Well, now you're not a hypocrite, so I got to respect you a little bit. And Jimmy, you admitted things were slow. You put some effort in. The whole team is looking better. If I was going to put you in a car for a race, this would be it, man. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, there you go. And as for Connor Zilich, I will say this, that those Trackhouse cars as a whole have not been qualifying too well. So
no.
I think it could be very interesting to see how Connor's going to handle a race like this, because this is going to be a race all about adjustments. And you know what, though? Credit where credit is due. I think Trackhouse has been one of the teams where they may have start slow, but they end up adjusting over the course of the entire race. And we've seen that with Ross Chastain particularly, and a little bit of that with SVG as well, too. I mean, SVG, he finished in the top 20 in his last intermediate race. So that right there should say something.
The team owner kind of has a knack for that. If you go watch Justin Marks, he's a very savvy student of the sport type guy. So that jives, if you will. So, all right, well, let's move on to our core here. What do you think, Sean?
Yeah, DFS core. So my DFS core 4 It's going to be Ryan Blaney at 10,200 on DraftKings, 12,000 on FanDuel. Alex Bowman at 8,000 on DraftKings and 8,500 on FanDuel. Yes, I do like Bowman a lot this week. Ryan Preece at 7,100 on DraftKings and 6,500 on FanDuel. Absolute steal on FanDuel right there. And Ricky Stenhouse Jr. at 6,700 on DraftKings and then 5,000 on FanDuel. Hit us with yours, Rich.
So give me Byron, give me Bell. You know I like to shoot for the stars with a couple of top guys. I could easily come off of Gibbs and go Preece. Or Barry, for that matter, but I do have Gibbs in there on my gut shot call. Although the lack of adjustments does have me reconsidering, Sean. I did not thought that angle, and it has me reconsidering. And then I want Jimmy because he's cheap. Give me Jimmy. I can go stars and scrubs with Jimmy. Give me Jimmy.
I don't mind it. I think I like SVG a little bit more at that price point, but I think Jimmy's in the conversation too as somebody that I can consider as well.
Watch Jimmy and SVG finish next to each other after qualifying next to each other.
That would be something right there. Getting into the betting core for us right there. I have Denny Hamlin at plus 650, Christopher Bell at plus 700, Ryan Blaney at plus 800, and that, I am going to go there and mention Ross Chastain at plus 1800 there. I think that line is absolutely off.
It is off.
Seriously.
I think
I have to mention it for how off it is.
Yeah. Give me Bell at 700. Give me Byron at 750. Give me Blaney at 800. And give me Kyle Busch at plus 1200.
Kyle Busch. We didn't talk a lot about Kyle Busch today. So
no, we did. But again, that's a guy that the speed's been there lately. And he's hungry. And I don't believe he has a Coke 600 win.
Does he have a Coke 600 win? He does have one win in his career at Charlotte.
I know, but I don't believe it's the Coke 600. I could be wrong.
Oh, actually, it was. It was 2018 he won. He actually dominated a good amount of that race too.
That's right. He did. I was at that race. I forgot about that. So where did I see the stat about him not winning? Well, I was wrong. But I did. I remember now. He did dominate because the year before he actually dominated most of the race and didn't have the finish. But that's right.
No, that wasn't the case the year before because that was 2017, and we know who dominated in 2017.
Oh, that's the year that Truex led all but 2 laps or 4 laps. I was at that one too. That was the one I was on the pit box in Paul Menard's pit for the race and got to go down to victory lane when Truex won.
Yeah, 2017, Truex led every lap but 8 of them. And then Kyle Busch led almost as many laps the very next year in 2018.
See, sometimes they blend together for me, man. When you drink beer at the track, they start to blend together. So it must have been the year before. There was a race where it was like Kyle had been doing well and didn't, and I felt he was due. So it was probably, maybe I'm getting him flip-flopped, or maybe it was a fall race I'm thinking of. But I don't know. I feel like Kyle Busch has kind of been there. I feel like they're missing a little something. And I don't know what it is because it's like he's just driving a little bit too much on the edge to get the speed out of it because we keep seeing him kind of lose it. Not lose it like mentally, but like the car gets sideways. At 12-1, man, I feel like it's a decent little bet.
I have to see a little bit more. I'm not sold on Kyle at the intermediates yet, just because the finishes just haven't
totally
been
fair.
For me.
That's totally fair, man. I'm kind of out on an island this week, and I know this. So tread lightly with me, folks. It is. I'm on Mileto Island this week, and I'm all up in my feels, and I reserve the right to change my mind come Sunday as I do a little bit more homework. But I'm on JGR. I'm on Hendrick. I'm betting history here is where I'm kind of coming from, and momentum.
Yeah, I think that's valid in order to say too, because you know what? I reserve the right in order to say that I'm wrong about anything that I may say today too. I could either look like a genius or a complete fool on Sunday. So
to be fair to you though, Sean, you have been very good and accurate for the last probably month plus on our show here. So there's a lot of credence to everything you're saying. I have no problem with you pushing back and doubting me on things. I kind of cherish it because I want you to push back on me. I am all up. It's hard for me to get out of my gut feelings and emotions on this weekend, and I'm being honest with folks. Everybody has a bias. These two racetracks are where my racing passion has derived from. So there's a lot of things that get all murky in here from being and seeing and remembering and knowing how things operate, and just knowing that it always seems like Charlotte and Indy, weird things happen. It's the stuff you're not expecting to happen that happens, whereas the stuff you expect to happen doesn't. Joseph Newgarden was a little bit of an anomaly the last 2 years, and now we find out he was cheating, where it's really some odd stuff that usually, I mean, we're going 600 miles. Weird things happen at 400-mile events. You know, IndyCar, 500 miles. That's a lot for them. They don't do that. Lots of weird things happen. So we'll see. We will be digging. I'm looking forward to Sean's overview article. He's doing that this week. I highly recommend everybody tune into that. I will be reading that and going over it as well. There's probably things I'm going to take out of it that might get me to adjust a little bit of what I'm doing for Sunday's events. I do want to be in Discord. My goal for everybody is to have all the writing done on Saturday, because I want to hang out with every race fan possible in Discord on Sunday. That's my goal. So if you're watching this and you want to hang out and talk racing, please jump in our Discord on Sunday. I'm going to write and mow the lawn on Saturday or Monday, whichever day the weather works with, and I'm race fan on Sunday.
Does this mean you're also going to finally post in the F1 Discord room, Rich?
No. Fat chance. Not happening.
Hey, I had to get that out there. The F1 room needs some love too from time to time.
I know, but I feel like a hypocrite because I hate F1. I don't watch it. I hate it. I hate almost everything about it. And so I feel like a total canoe when I go in there. Like, who the F am I? And I'm a guy that dogs on this stuff. Like, you don't want to hear. It's like, that's like me and Joey Logano in go-karts and me wrecking him and him crying about it, right? Like, you're a freaking hypocrite. What the hell? I don't want to be that guy.
Fair enough. Valid. Fair enough. But before we close out here, I do have a few other small bets in order to mention. Figure I get these out, especially since who knows how much time I'm going to have in order to get in there on Sunday. But I figure I'd leave you all with some early bets to consider. Now, I have two head-to-head bets right here. I have Kyle Busch versus Alex Bowman. I'm taking Alex Bowman at minus 115. Then I have Tyler Reddick versus Ryan Blaney. Give me Ryan Blaney at minus 120. You can parlay both of those two at plus 242. And then I have a top car bet. Yeah.
Whoa.
You just noticed it, huh?
Whoa, that's a ballsy bet right there. I think we should name that Sean's ballsy bet of the week.
Yeah. Top car, Ryan Preece, top four, plus
forward.
1,300 right there. And realistically, I think there's a solid chance that this could come to fruition right there. You look back towards all the races on the 1.5 mile intermediate tracks, there's been only realistically about 3 different drivers that you could say that have been in the running for almost all the intermediate races right there. It's either Ryan Blaney, Josh Berry, or Ryan Preece. Those 3 have been the top guys. Maybe you could throw in Chris Buescher there for one of those races too. But those have been the 3 fastest drivers at the intermediates this season in a Ford car. So Josh Berry has some pretty decent odds right there too. He's plus 700. I would consider taking a shot on that as well. But I can't ignore the odds for Ryan Preece being this deep right here.
I'm with you. I think the line's off. There's no reason Preece should be that much different than Josh Berry. Maybe 1 or 2 points, 700 to 800 or 800 to 900. But at 1,300, Sean, it's almost a 50% difference. I mean, that's a hell of a find. We need to have a new category, Sean's ballsy bets of the week. I love it. I love it.
And you know what the really ridiculous thing is too, is that makes Ryan Preece the 7th highest driver as far as top Ford car right there is concerned. He's just below Brad Keselowski and Austin Cindric, and Preece has outperformed both of those drivers.
By a lot. Wow. Well, I love them. I will be looking some more at the head-to-heads. I cooled on that, guys, because I don't like giving you bad bets. And as one of the members put on the bets with the poop emoji. They were hit a couple of weeks ago, so I've scaled back a little bit. I only put up the 3 winners last week, and hey, you can hate on them all you want, but they went 1. I list them in order, and they went 1, 2, and wrecked out wherever Brad ended up. But he was leading laps early, so I'm getting back in the groove. Sean and I were really overlapping on those anyway. I think we had the top 2 the same, and we were different on the 3rd guy or 4th guy. I didn't have a 4th guy, but look, we were there. All right. So
yeah,
I do take it personal, not as in like you can't insult me. I take it personal. Just I don't need to know that it's a poop emoji. I know it was poop already. I felt bad as it was. And I really did feel good going into the weekend. And I will argue that there were some odd things that happened, whether it was tires, whether it was anything else, that the fast cars were there. I mean, it's not like we lied to you, but who would be fast? So, Sean, I love your ballsy bet of the week. I think I might tell the wife to go make that bet. I am going to go hit the trifecta box because for $1 to win 50 seems like a reasonable lottery ticket to me. So
you know what? You take a McChicken on that and you turn that into a whole big giant Uber Eats order at the end of it.
That's the way to look at it, man. So love it. Sean, it's always great. On behalf of Sean Engel, please follow him on X at SeanE247. Remember, it's the fun way to spell Sean, S-E-A-N. Don't follow me on X. I'm Rich. I'm freaking lost Maletto. Please go over to fantasyguru.com, click subscribe, check out all the different package, early bird special on football. Take advantage while you can before it's too late. I don't want to hear whining in August. Check out the baseball. If baseball's your jam, now's a good time. Don't miss out. Ray's been putting out some crazy bets and hitting them. Finsty's got you covered on basketball. Hockey is kind of winding down, but you know we love the guys with Jorge Pucks and his crew over there. Arnie's putting up some soccer bets. Check them out. Tyler's got some esports and PGA. Check them out. Remember, get you access to the Discord. On behalf of the Elite Plus and FantasyGuru.com, this is the Race Guru Thunder Hour. I am Rich Maletto with Sean Engel. Until next time, peace.
Peace and happy 50 episodes of the Race Guru Thunder Hour.
Oh, yeah, 50!
Yeah, 50! Woo! All right. See you all next time. Peace.